needs to read the text.
Apologies from Councillor Testovich. And what about Councillor Harawira and Councillor Flynn?
Give them a call. Oh, hang on, who have I got?
We've got Chair Ward, Chair Gardner.
She's not on.
Is that right?
Chair Gardner. Yeah.
They don't have any messages that anyone else?
No. Just ringing.
All right.
Listening.
Well, that's all right. Well, they skip apologies and send truancy police around. There might be some problems with the roads that they're. It was a wild night.
Felicity still sick, she's online.
This is just going to be recorded and uploaded. Yeah. Then we'll get started. Morning everybody. I'll formally open our Koukou Transport and Infrastructure Committee with our council prayer. Kia ino tātou, ka tuku mātou kia kaha mai ngā māngai ko whiriwhiri hia mō te kaunihira o te hiko o tika ki te mahi me te ngākau auaha, me te haka mahi i ngā pūkenga me te mātauranga i roto i ngā wānanga, me ngā hakataunga ki haka tūri ai te tahi hapori e mata tika ana, e tūko tahi ana kamutu ka haka puki anō i te oranga o tō tātou rohe, ka haka tau anō i ngā paki o te rohe i runga i te tika me te pono. We ask that through council's discussions and decisions, the representatives we have elected may govern the Far North District with imagination, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and united community that enhances the well-being of our district and solves the district's problems efficiently and effectively. Amen.
Amen.
Just by way of apologies, we've had apologies from Councillor Testovich today, which I will move if I could get a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Research. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, all abstentions, and that is carried. Just by way of announcements, I just really want to, because this is our first formal meeting, I want to acknowledge the passing of Matua Sid Going. Well, I think we can all appreciate the incredible leadership and pride that he brought to our province throughout his sporting career. So Matua Sid was buried yesterday in Maronaku. So just wanted to acknowledge the Going whānau at this time. For deputations, we've got a deputation from Scope Total Project Partners. So we've got Kelly and Dylan in chambers. Kia ora to you both. For deputations, you have some time. And I'm happy to pass the time over to you. Please feel free to sit down, stand up, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Just a reminder that this is being recorded and will be published to our Far North District Council YouTube and Facebook pages, where you'll be famous across the Far North with your presentation today.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Kelly Haora tōku ingoa, ko Parakiore te maunga, ko Wairoa te awa, ko Ngā tuku mata whaurua te waka, ko Ngāti Tapu o Ngāre, te hapu, ko Ngāpu i te iwi, no whangarei ahau. Good everyone, my name is Kelly Haora. I'm one of two directors at Scope, Total Project Partners. We are a client-side project management firm. We've been servicing the Far North for about 21 years. We've got about 20 staff some of whom are based in the far north servicing our projects up here. One of whom is Dylan Menzies. To my right here, who's based in Whangarei, one of our senior project managers, and Dylan's going to run us through our capability and capacity statements. So without too much further ado, I'll hand it over to Dylan. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora team, good to meet you. I thought originally we were coming up for just a coffee and a catch up, but here we are doing a deputation in front of everybody. That's good, but how do we get the, oh, there we go. So starting off, a little snapshot about myself. Senior project manager with scope, development manager and team lead, originally from Queenstown. I was over in Australia for a while. We've built and sold a few businesses myself in civil construction, property development and mining services. Then I wanted to come back home, reconnect with my country and my people, which has been an absolute privilege, and it's awesome to be back home. It's exactly where I want to be. And Scope's all a part of that. Just joining Scope, the team that Scope is absolutely fantastic, and you'll see that. But who we are. So we're a client-side project management firm. For those of you that do know that, that's great. For those that don't, we basically work on the client side to help deliver projects from its infancy, from whether it's an idea or a feasibility, all the way through to delivering it into an opening ceremony, much like Lindbark Park, which you would have seen recently. Unlike normal project managers or client-side project managers, there's a few extra little things that we do. Rather than bore you with the bullet points that are up there, why we're different, and this is led from Kelly and Ben down. It's the team culture that's in there. It's a lot of fun, but everyone's just driven beyond belief, and it's refreshing for me to see. I've been there for 3 years now, and seeing the way that the team treats the clients and the projects is what really turns the gears each day. As an example, do a lot of work with the Ministry of Education, and the way that the team, I see them still flicking around emails, my team anyway, at 9 o'clock at night, and that's not because they're busy, but because they enjoy what they do, and they care a lot about what they're delivering. So they're nickeling and diming over variations and contingency all the way through to making sure that the project for the school, as an example, is delivered on time for the kids and on budget, because those extra dollars can be spent on just about anything else for that school. A little bit extra about the project management side. Where we differ again, we've got in-house quantity surveyors that do the numbers. We call them the numbers guys, and they'll look at the feasibility, give us cost estimates from the beginning, all the way through to managing the progress claims as they come through. So as project managers, we've got a second eye looking at the numbers everywhere we go. And we've also got in-house valuations so that we can do valuations for clients to give an idea at the end of the project what they could be delivering and how much for. Projects, the fun bits, you've seen a few of them. Tomato Apoi, I have the privilege of managing the maintenance side of that now. It was an epic project, and Scope had the privilege of delivering some of the biggest projects to the north, which is awesome. There's a few of them up there. Again, I've managed the bridge with NTA and WDC down in Whangarei. We just delivered. Another one of my gigs was the Lindbark Park Sports Complex, which again, awesome project, and it's epic to have it open. We're frothing every time we go past there and see the sports that are going on down there. I'm going to head by after this and check it out again. And Kelly's looking after the Ottawa social development. And there's lots of other projects that we're doing up here for the private sector, and we just want to start expanding and doing some more work directly for FNDP. Here are our clients. Very proud of our clients, and we believe our clients are proud of us as well. There's a little spot there for FNDC that will poke up there soon. Now it's an honour to work for all these clients up there, and that's mixed in with a lot of private clients as well. So yeah, we're excited about what we can do next. In summary, we are client-side project managers that love what we do, and the whole team loves what we do. Kelly and the team being above, it's a really top-down culture that's dedicated through the whole business. again, refreshing and a privilege to see the way that the guys and girls within the company just love what they do, delivering projects and making sure they're delivered on time and on program. And we're keen to start working in. We're used to working different aspects for different clients, whether that's contracting externally like a normal consultant, whether that's contracting internally using client email addresses, that kind of thing, to make it more synonymous within the organisation, and even secondment as well. We've got a few guys out there on secondment where we put them off and they're still held under our umbrella, but they work directly for the client. So keen to get in touch and do some project management directly for FNDC.
Dylan and Kelly, thank you very much. One, for taking the time to head up to Koukou to, and sorry that you ended up in the middle of a formal meeting to give a presentation to us rather than just a more casual coffee, but really appreciate being able to have you in the room and to put faces to the name. And we're incredibly proud of our new Papa Hawaii Sports Complex here in Koukou as well. So that's definitely given you some brownie points. I don't know how our procurement process works intimately enough to know if those points will also count in that process, but I wonder if there are any questions from anyone in the room.
Oh, I'll have a quick question. Thank you.
Councillor Message.
Thank you very much for the project work. Passing my regards to Trevor, if you see him. And the question really is, I see the range of work that you've done. So it's in sports complexes, bridges by the sound of it, various other things. You want to expand on that? That's what I saw in the picture, but how extensive is your range?
I don't know if there's an industry that we haven't been involved with. So in the infrastructure side of things, we've got, as Dylan mentioned, the guy seconded down at Loop Road, where they're doing the four laning down there. We've got another guy who's been seconded into a construction team doing some pretty decent infrastructure works down in Tauranga. So from an infrastructure point of view, we're quite broad-based, working for both clients and contractors, right the way through the whole sort of scheme, really. So councillors, with councils, we've worked with WDC obviously to deliver Te Makapaui and a couple other bridges. So from that point of view, quite across the space, but that's just obviously one industry. Obviously with Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, we're doing quite a bit up at the hospital and through the private sector too. So we've got quite a broad range of experience.
Thank you. I haven't had any other indications of questions there. Otherwise, it's just it's really great to have you in here and appreciate that you've made the request to come and actually meet us face to face. Very quickly, we've got Councillor Foy online. Oh, yeah, that's a very good question here. Do you have any? Now we love being Northlanders alongside people from the city, but we've got a question there from Councillor Foy. Do you have any staff based in Te Koukou and our northern border confine?
We don't at the moment. So Dylan's based out of Haru, which is servicing much of our project work in the north, but that, as we hope to expand, we will be expanding and exploring more options on north as well.
Yep. I'm in Haru, nice and close, and that's why I dragged Kelly up here. Really, I'm keen to do more work up in the north and head this way so that I can turn the car around this way rather than head down to Whangarei.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and no doubt there'll be the capital works program to the value of $100 million. There will be plenty of work put up across skets and all of those sorts of systems for you to tend to, and no doubt this won't be the last time we'll see you in our chambers. You're very welcome to stay for our meeting. We'll probably have a break in about an hour and a half if you want to stick around and have a little catch up like that. Otherwise, you're free to go as well. Thank you very much.
We might get on and keep going with that day, but it's been a privilege. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Talk soon.
Thank you very much. Just quickly before we get into our meeting reports, I really just wanted to acknowledge the fact that we've got someone new in the hot seat today, Tanya Proctor, the head of our infrastructure strategy, and it's your first Te Koukou transport and infrastructure meeting, which doesn't mean we're going to take it easy on you. But really appreciate you having in the seat. And because I've acknowledged you, I of course have to acknowledge Calvin and our NTA staff who are here in the room as well. And we've let you off today, Calvin, but thank you very much. Your time in our hot seat with this committee in any case, and that's to get you in the room today, along with fellow staff members. So thank you very much. We'll get into our meeting proper with item 5.4.1, which is on page 9. The confirmation of previous minutes from our meeting on the 23rd of April, which I will move. Seconder. Thank you. Did you pick up anything in these minutes that need attention? No. Anyone else pick up anything on our minutes? Then we will put that to the vote. All in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions. And then it's carried. We go to item 5.1, which is on page 15. Moved by Councillor Research, seconded by myself. Our transport portfolio members' reports. We'll start with Councillor Court, if you would like to speak to your report.
Thank you. I have included the full copy of the SHIP, which is the State Highway Investment Proposal, as part of my members' report. I did circulate it by email when it was first publicly released, along with a cover note. I think it's important just to recap what the cover note said, that this is the New Zealand Transport Agency's bid for activities to be prioritised within each regional land transport plan, inclusion in the National Land Transport Plan program. So it's not locked in. I included a key to the investment, which appears in the document. The program included a significant increase in road surface and pavement renewals to increase the longevity of new pavement and reduce the incidence of pothole and similar faults and related repair works, increasing drainage renewals to better manage the effects of climate change, amongst others. Well, the exact figure isn't given in the key. The symbols of $5 fines shows that they're planning to spend more than 1,000 million at this stage. This places us ahead of Kairapaki, Hawke's Bay, Taranaki, Nelson, Tasman, Marlborough, Westcoast and Southland, and on par with other regions in our peer group. Bearing in mind that this dollar value could produce some significant variances. It's important to note that we have a significant number of state highways in Northland, and these are our regional connector roads. So it's really important that we hold the New Zealand Transport Agency's feet to the fire to deliver on improved level of service on their state highway network. I just want to add to that on the 14th of May, we were advised that by NZTA that they are going to make some changes to their funding application as reflected in the draft Regional Land Transport Plan. These changes are in relation to the State Highway Improvement Project Speed and Infrastructure Program, which is now being changed to State Highway Improvements Value for Money Safety Projects. And these projects were around the installation of median barriers on state highways. And I sent you all a spreadsheet which shows what they're planning to change. This triggers significance. So the Regional Land Transport Committee has now gone out for a bespoke second round of consultation on that matter and that matter only. So it has no financial impact for us. I just wanted to let you know that that work was happening. This Friday, the Regional Land Transport Committee will be deliberating on submissions. They received 131 in total. What I observed from reading them is a lot of them actually relate to works that sit within each council's purview, the Regional Land Transport Committee's purview. So the staff commentary is that these will be referred back to each individual council, but they will become too late for inclusion in our LTP. So I think there's some process improvements we should be looking at, and it might be legislative changes to make sure that those two processes speak to each other. But at the moment, they're not. There was a significant number of submissions on the ceiling of Rafferty Road. We'd be interested in listening. And finally, I just want to introduce Calvin and Dawn are going to talk to the emergency works policy consultation, and I did circulate that by email. This is a significant change that has been forecast by NZTA. What they are looking to do is change the way they fund emergency works moving forward. The change in policy is pushing out costs onto the local road controlling authority and away from NZTA, rather than addressing the overall cost issue. The change is looking to put more onus on road controlling authorities to have a resilience plan in place before the funding is dispersed. I think we can all understand that NZTA funding is under the pump, but that doesn't automatically mean that we're in a position to pick up the shortfall. And for the far north, this is particularly relevant because we're more vulnerable to tropical cyclone damage than any other region in New Zealand. We have a very challenging network. It's challenged by our geography and geology. So we just need one more weather bomb, and we're not in a position to financially respond if this policy goes through unchanged. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Calvin and Dawn, who were going to do a verbal update on this. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Court. Through the chair, you've distributed the documentation regarding the consultation document, and since you previously sent that out, Dawn and her team have done quite a bit of analysis on impact. So, Chair allows us to just hand over to Dawn, I guess, some high-level bullet points of where the impacts are for council should this proceed as it's needed.
Thank you and good morning. In the actual policy document, I think it's summarised on the bottom of page 5 and on page 6. There's a couple of tables where it actually talks about the levers, and those are the key components that this policy is changing. So the first one is about changing the threshold event. So they want to change it from a 1 in 10-year storm event to a 1 in 20-year storm event before we are eligible to get the subsidy funding at the higher rates.
Who makes the call? Is that like NIWA or about the impact of a storm event itself?
It's a wonderful question and one I cannot tell you right now. Currently, we listen to the weather, and when it comes in an orange event and the threshold of the damage has been breached, we put in an application. We don't actually justify at present that it's a 1 in 10 storm. My understanding unofficially from speaking to Waka Kotahi is that they've actually paid out some storms that were less than 1 in 10, and they themselves don't know how we would assess a 1 in 20-year storm event, because does it impact a quarter of your region, half your region, all your region? It's a very difficult measure value to do. So they themselves are going to argue that it's not a viable lever to change because it's very difficult to measure and to argue for. So I'm sorry I can't answer what exactly it is because I don't.
It's funny that they put it there. So what I make of this is that they're putting in a new framework of rules around how we would get funded to fix our roads, but then they don't have this is the new rule, but we've got no lever to say what it is.
NIWA makes the call.
Yeah, NIWA makes the call. At the end of the day, we would potentially have to get in a specialist that could do modelling on our rainfall to decide if it was a 1 in 20-year storm and we could fight the case. They may be fighting with somebody else saying, well, it was a 1 in 20-year storm for 50% of your network, but not all of it. Again, there's not enough detail that they've provided around it. So I think.
So for us in the final, we have how many active slips still coming back? Meeting 26.
There were 70 major 77 major slips across Northland, and if I'm correct, 38 in Farnham.
Yeah, 3 of which we've already given our local share, but 35 are still outstanding and undergoing design process.
That's correct.
So under this new lever, if that storm was a 1 in 10, not a 1 in 20, we would lose 10% of our share from Koukou. Are we able to quantify what that would mean? Would need to come out of rates rather than as relief from central government? For our eventual submission to this proposal?
There's two ways that storms are paid for. If a storm is smaller than the criteria that under the emergency works, there is budget under, we call it work category 140, which is where we pay for small damage. And that gets a regular FAR subsidy rate for it.
So ours currently is 71%.
Yes.
69 at the moment,
Moving to 71. If we have budgeted in our long-term plan and know how many storms we're going to compensate for, it's linked to your long-term plan. So if you don't have the money in your long-term plan, then you're at risk as a council. Where this budget comes in, this is slightly different, where we can gain further subsidy. We can have an enhanced subsidy, or we can have a bespoke subsidy. And that takes, by changing the 1 in 10 to 1 in 20 year, it means we've got less chance of getting that higher subsidy. You've got to, as a council, be more proactive and plan for potential storms and not leave the risk to the NLTF fund.
So I think one of the things that's difficult with the slips you've got at the moment is there's no doubt they would have triggered the 1 in 20 year event. So they would have triggered that. The difference that comes in this is there are 2 parts to the potential change in FAR rate. So one is for the initial response in phase 2 for those storms, Farnham District Council plus 40%. That is what they call a bespoke FAR rate. So the rules would mean you were 100% funded.
Did we get the extra 9%?
No, it is split as plus 40 up to 100. So,
Nice try though.
yeah. So what they've said in this case, in future storms, any bespoke funding would first have to, that funding would have to be provided by central government outside of the NLTF. So it'd be a central government decision that extra funding was going to be given to council. So in the case of Gabriel, that did occur. So central government provided Wakatai with the extra money, which is what. But there's no guarantee that that will occur for a localised.
And who will have that power within the central government to make that call? Because it sounds like it could then be.
So I would imagine it
Is your region in favour?
well, yeah, and generally, historically, those calls have been guided by the Minister of Civil Affairs. So that's generally the region provides the needs, and then the Minister of Civil Affairs goes back to government. Yep. The second part of it, though, is for the emergency works events that do trigger the 1 in 20 year threshold. At present, Farnham District Council are provided a plus 20 FAR rate when your maintenance expenditure is greater than, when the cost of the damage is greater than 10% of your maintenance expenditure. What's proposed in this from July 2025 is that plus 20 drops to plus 10.
So do we need to increase local share plus 10% to make up the shortfall?
Yes. Under the.
But when does this become law and then it goes as part of our LTP that we're going to be?
So at present, this is proposed that those FAR rates take effect from the 1st of July 2025.
Everything else takes effect from the 1st of July 2024.
So the triggers and thresholds will take effect.
So we're going to have a shortfall.
It is
a new one of our LTP.
1, 2 and 3.
1, 2 and 3.
Only if we have a storm.
So that only if you have a storm, but there is within your LTP at the moment, the share figures for the track remaining phase 3 works are based on current FAR rates and triggers. So
Can you
that,
ensure that continues? That's what I was gonna ask.
No.
Oh, so
so any future works, and this is where the immediate risk for council is any future works are potentially at that lower far end.
I'm just gonna move that we suspend standing orders for this paper.
Well, you-
Just so that, and I know it's not ideal that we've had this come through on our transport. Because it would have been good to have it spoken to it separately. So if I could just get a second of it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Stratford. All those in favour? Those opposed or abstentions? That's cool, just because I mean, meanwhile, I've already had like about 3 or 4 questions. We'll go. You there? Then Councillor McNally and then Councillor Radich after that.
Okay, sorry.
but I-
No, this- Yeah, if we just go through the last bits, which may answer some questions.
Oh, yeah.
I think the other point, so as we said, there were 4 different parts that we talked about. But the other thing that they've changed is that the qualifying activities is that they will fund not back to the customer level of service. They will fund like for like or a lower level of service. So we may never even be able to get the funding to bring it back to what you wanted at the beginning. You would then have to invest improvement money under your LTP to bring the level of service back. So there's a secondary risk with this as well, changing the wording.
But with the level of weather and the degradation of our roads, in our first workshop, we had that little graph where all of our roads are at the end of their life and about to have catastrophic failure. That means even a 1 in 5 year storm or 1 in, like a little storm could come through, and that's the hair that breaks the camel's back, or whatever you're saying. And then we'll never see the level of investment under this proposal to get it back to.
So the level of investment to get those areas back is through improvements renewable. But you're right, they're at greater risk of damage because of the condition they're in.
And the reason that what Koukou Tahi are doing this is because there's not enough money to go around, so they're trying to save money when and where they can. But for someone like us here in the finals, where the state of our roads is so appalling and we've been hit by weather bomb, this is going to have huge implications for us cost-wise and for our ratepayers who already can't afford the rates that we are setting right now. And we've got a chance to submit to this, put all of the implications for us into words and send it off to someone to read.
14th of June, I think, is the day that they want the feedback.
19th.
19th, so
So,
I still have to collate.
so the process we're working through at the moment is we're sitting down with each council of Northland and explaining the proposal, giving feedback from a specific council perspective, and in Dawn's team, we're going to be putting forward a draft submission. The idea of that is to be sent to the CEs and to discuss with the mayors and RTC portfolio member holders. I think we're aiming to get that to CEs on the 12th of June. Feedback 3 days in that period after that, just to refine it so that we can submit on behalf of each council. So this conversation is informing that submission process that we're moving forward.
Cool, we'll go Deputy Mayor Stratford.
you.
Sorry.
Oh,
Was you? That's it.
Sorry, I jumped in. I'll follow my. I keep thinking of stuff on the fly.
No, we're done.
Just write it down and wait.
So, that's great that you guys are getting ready to do a submission for this policy change. Do you have enough time to include the voices of the Climate Adaptation Joint Committee and the Regional Civil Defence Group, or should we do our own submissions?
I would prefer you did your own submissions, but if you have something available to send to us, we are happy to incorporate it.
Oh, we should do our own submissions too, to add weight. But if we all, like staff that are part of that process, can, make sure that we're saying the same things.
Councillor McNally, then Councillor Radich, then Councillor Research.
This just triggers something I think of at most of these meetings. We're focusing on the emergency work funding policy. It's pretty clear what the government wants is that, and I've only just seen this, is the road controlling authorities are focusing on the resilient plan, not the next storm. We don't know what the weather's going to do, so forget that. So how about we start focusing on proactive forward planning? We're continually looking backwards. And if you look at what they're in their, in this, just a few things I've highlighted, consider a community-led retreat, value for money alongside wider outcomes, different level of service. I think if we get our funding right and prioritise some of our remedial works, that we know it's there under our RAM data, 1 to 3, fix those things. And I've been banging on about drainage for 18 months now. Let's just focus on that stuff. Get a really strong forward plan and make sure we've got the budget in this LTP to do it. The next storm is going to happen, and whatever happens, happens. And, you know, there's a whole lot of things that are just really annoy me that we don't actually prioritise the work that needs to be done. And that's why our network continues to degrade.
So just answering a couple of those things, I think I mentioned previously that at the moment, the plan and the ability to do drainage deficit is based on the current LTP. Advice for the next LTP is in the best moment, and we're fully supportive of that. What we're highlighting today is you don't actually need another storm for council to be exposed to this risk. You're already exposed to it from the damage from the previous storms. And
So you're saying that the funding that should be in place to cover fixing the work, the emergency works that we've already chased to this date is going to be lost?
So what happens each year is your funding emergency work resets at 0. And you need to meet the 10% threshold, and then they provide emergency works funding to top that up. That is what's been allowed for in your LTP. So the first 10% of expenditure is at normal FAR rate until you trigger the 10% of funding, and then beyond that. What we're saying here is that council will be exposed from 2025 to a greater level of local share for those historic slips, irrespective of whether you have another storm or not. So this is not about one or the other in terms of proactive planning and budgeting to improve things. This is about council needing to appropriately plan for the risk exposure that is going to increase if this moves forward.
So let's just talk about one specific slip that comes up just about every meeting, motor T.
Yep.
So what you're saying is that the delays in fixing that, we could, by the end of June this year, we might lose that funding and we haven't.
So motor T is secured funding.
Right.
So that is already approved, and that is.
But the other 35.
The other 35 are budgeted at present in the LTP under the current rules. But then the FAR rates don't change until 2020. There is a window, but there is risk to council in terms of.
So we get to work at pace to get those 35 sorted so that we only have to put in 11% share in. 21%. What are you doing here? Yeah, exactly.
So at the moment, I think a number of those we're starting to get back the designs for and things like that. So they are progressing and the tender process will progress. But this is about ensuring that governments are aware of the potential risk to council should this come into being. And it's not a one or the other thing in terms of what you should be focusing on with your plan works. This is about a what if scenario. If you have a storm, this is your potential lift and risk exposure.
Just really highlights the cost of delays, doesn't it?
And the cost of not proactively maintaining. Councillor Radich and then Councillor Research.
Muted.
Councillor Radich, do you want to try unmuting?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yeah, could NTA tell me what was the total cost subsidy from government to the Far North District Council from the last storm? What did we get financially? Can
So
you tell me,
today,
Cal?
yeah, today we've done approximately 15 million, I believe it is.
10 million, yeah.
15 million of works, and all 15 million of that was 100% funded, which means that effectively you have got whatever 31% of 15 million is. an extra 4.5 to 5 million of subsidies on top of your normal subsidies. So basically government, through the subsidy and the increased FAR, Far North have had that 15 million 100% funded. So that's.
That was in phase 1 and 2.
Phase 1 and 2.
That's the bespoke
So
part.
going back to the delays, nationally as a result of the Gabriel storms and the other weather events, NZTA put in place this phased approach. And part of that was about making sure that we could deal with the regions could deal with the majority of slips of a smaller scale as quickly as possible while progressing the complex ones. For council, what that meant is we focused, while we were still progressing the other ones, which had some complexity, we focused on making sure we got those phase 2 and immediate recovery ones fixed before the end of June this year, which is when that 100% funding runs out. So there was a balance between actually focusing on the ones where you were 100% funded and making sure that we could get the volume of slips down, because there was over 300 slips in the Far North area. Getting that volume down so we can then concentrate on the complex in a more managed and planned way.
Got councillor research.
Yeah. Looking at the policy, and thanks for that, Kevin. Obviously, as Steve has already said, it's going to push us towards building our roads to be more resilient. We'd be mugs if we didn't, and we've been mugs not having done it already. But so I've got really two questions out of that. You see in page 64 on this that Anne put in for the draft GPS, there's going to be a focus on maintenance and resilience, recognising recent flood and weather events. So from my point of view, I'm a little bit concerned. I want to know what that actually means, because to build roads of greater resilience means under our current far rate of 71%, which last year was fast to move to 71%. We should be focusing on doing all of that quickly, otherwise we make some big risks to cost to ratepayers. And if we were to focus on that, will Waka Kotahi improve it? And that's what I'm concerned about. Given that our current roads that we've got don't even meet the standards that they should be, even our state highways don't meet the standards of design that it should be. You look at your passing lanes and all that sort of stuff that's meant to be there. And to build it with, given the flood events and what we get warned about greater flood events, we should actually go into deeper water tables and bigger culverts and various other things to build still more resilience in that road. It would be fools if we didn't do that. So will we be supported if we were to focus on that thing that's been raised recently? Focus on that. Will we be supported by Waka Kotahi and therefore the 71%, well, 69 currently, but going 71 comes through for us to do that?
So your current LTP submission is heavily focused on improvements and resilience. That is what is in there. There's a big step up, and we had the presentations previously showing those step ups and rehabs, renewal improvements and the like. That is what's informed your LTP, and that's what's informed the submission to Waka. The NLTF, the National Land Transport Fund, is under strain. It is highly unlikely that councils will get what they have asked for moving forward. We are in a constrained environment. We get an indication CEs are likely to get a letter in the next 2 to 3 weeks, which will provide Kotahi's view on your continuous program funding as an indicative budget. So that covers maintenance, operations, renewals, and road safety promotion. So that is the first indication of where your funding levels are likely to land from an NLP perspective. But all signals are that, as usual, the NLT is oversubscribed. It's oversubscribed in the areas of government priorities in the ETS being maintenance renewals, because most councils across New Zealand, and particularly rural, are in the same position. So everyone is focusing on drainage, everyone is focusing on renewals, and everyone is focusing on those sorts of things because that's what the asset needs. So the short answer is, even if Far North District Council had the local share to accelerate this program, I do not believe the NLT would be able to subsidy component.
Can you put into words our workshop here last year at the current funding levels, it was gonna take us 180 years to play catch up on drainage. Under our current proposal, if we're expecting to up X amount, whatever you're expecting, what have we managed to move that 180 years to, like how, and we were the outlier, that was our number. The Northern average was 64 years, which means that compared to our cousin councils, we're like way out, we're like putting our average way out. Because that's the sort, for me, because all of this is like half it goes over my head, if I'm being honest, goes half over the head of everyone in the final too, because they don't care about all that stuff, they just want to fix the road. But I need to have a, what do you call it? Roading funding 101 bullet point 10 steps that I can then spin yarns to ministers to the public to, but I need to understand the implications of it all and what I need to do in my role, what everyone in this room needs to do in our roles to try and get ahead, like.
If you'll excuse my numbers, because I've just run a very quick check on a spreadsheet and I would like to confirm it. But if we take everything that we've currently got in at our higher enhanced fire rate of 89%, I'm excluding 100% bespoke. If we changed it from our plus 20% back down to plus 10%, as a council, you would have to look for another 1.8 million this year alone. That would have to come out of your maintenance operations or whatever to still undertake that amount of works.
Sorry,
That's the scale.
three slips or 35 slips?
No, this is all the storm events. I'm going back from July 2022, May 23.
What's our emergency works budget?
That's our emergency works for council here today.
How much do we have in our pot?
We need to find this liberties.
How much are we putting up in the pot?
We need to ask.
That what it would come out.
We'd have to go back and ask that.
Because you set up a pot for future, but we're going to be using it to pay for past.
Yes.
So I want to know how much the pot is.
10% of their maintenance budget is usually about where it's.
So like 10 mil.
No, maintenance budget is somewhere in the vicinity of $1 million a year.
So 4 mil.
So emergency.
So 50% is already spent on future storms. So from past storms. Okay, but that's cool. Sorry, I keep butting in again. I've got Anne and then I've got Councillor Court and Councillor Foy.
Thank you. I think the reason I brought this to council today is this is really frightening financially, and we have not made a provision for this in our long-term plan. And I sent out the email and I just wondered if the significance of this was missed. But I want to thank Calvin and Dawn and Bernard for being here to talk to us about it. And I think Calvin articulated it far better than I did. There's an assumption, I think, sitting around that the NLTP will be fully funded to achieve the aspirations of the road controlling authorities in this country. It will not be. And Michael, I played you a video that I took of the CEO of NZTA, Nicole Rosie, speaking at the recent Road Controlling Authority Forum, where she said that their funding had been stagnant for 9 years. 9 years, and yet our costs have gone up, and as a country we've faced significant weather events. This has been a slow train crash coming, and it's been a slow train crash that I've signalled to this council ever since I took over the roading portfolio, that we were being moderated down in our funding request every 3 years. And that meant that we were not able to provide the level of service on the level expected. And as a result, we've seen degradation in our network. And this is just going to continue. Any hope that come September, we're going to be funded to build our roads at their 100% resilient is misguided. And it's not telling our customer out here, the people of the far north, the truth. We do need to work on our network, we do need to improve it, but at the same time, we need to understand, and this is just a proposal. But if this proposal becomes adopted by NZTA, we need to be in a position to respond. That means Charlie and his team now need to consider what years 2 and 3 of our LTP look like. We're going to have to do that under some urgency, I suspect, with the NTA, and ensure that we've got provision in there to meet our share of the emergency works should an adverse weather event happen. And they will. I just wanted to also point out for the Deputy Mayor for her submission, motorists pay about $1 billion per annum in FED and RUC through the emissions trading scheme. And that money goes to the climate emergency response fund. And that might be a lever that you wish to pull on for your submission if you're going up the civil defence lens. And currently, if you talk to NZTA, they will tell us their network is meeting levels of service. We don't agree that it's meeting service, but they will tell you that it is. So there's a number of conversations that need to happen concurrently. One is that we need to be very active in the funding review space. We need to be very active in the level of service space. And we need to be very active in this space and ensuring that our MPs, as well as NZTA, important that our MPs understand that we own 90% of the assets in this country. And we have to pitch fund for funding through a contestable fund. That has to change. Maintenance needs to come out of a contestable bucket. Road controlling authorities need to be funded to be able to maintain their network. Capital work could be a separate matter. I hope that helps or frustrates. Thank you.
Good, Councillor Foy.
Thank you, Moko. Just on this, a couple of questions, not just for the NTA staff and both Moko and Councillor Cord have highlighted the funding challenges that we have. I totally agree with Councillor McNally about investment in forward planning for resilience of our roading network, and it's not a new statement, and I'll just repeat that again: drainage, drainage, drainage. We need to invest in our drainage, but I think the key question that our council has never really thought about more and had that key discussion that Councillor Cord has highlighted with Charlie and our finance staff and with our roading staff, and actually what operational budgets there are that we have to take out of operational costs for rates, but what capital costs can we spend and loan fund and actually spread that cost so that it isn't going to affect rates so much. And I have asked the question about capitalising water table drains, and we've also asked the question about rebuilding of our unsealed road networks. And the question I would have in our capital works program is actually what can we do and what can we spend? It may not be subsidised, but when you have a roof that needs to be fixed, you still have to fix the roof because it'll ruin the rest of the house if you don't fix that roof. And our drainage and our water tables are our roof or our roads. So the question that I have to Charlie, if he's there, and I think that this is actually a discussion we should have in this forum in our roading area, not in our we need to have it with our roading engineers, how we will spread that cost and how maybe we shouldn't spend $12.7 million on our housing for the Audi portfolio and we should be spending on that on fixing our roads when our roads are a must have. So can our finance staff please have that discussion now and answer those types of questions? Because people want to spend more of that money on roads, not 20 cents in the dollar for roads, 30 cents in the dollar for roads. And that will be a huge change to our council and will mean a huge change operationally about how we look at that. But we need to look at what we can capitalise so it doesn't actually cost the ratepayer huge amounts up front. Charlie, if you could please respond with some of our finance staff.
Hi, Felicity. So I don't have the background information to hand to speak to specific details of the projects that you're referring to. When we're looking at rating for this work, there's a clear delineation between what we're looking at for OPEX and what we're looking at for capital expenditure. We can look at what OPEX we are spending in relation to the program that we have with the NTA. But that is, the OPEX is what will be hitting your ratepayers directly at this point in time. And we would need to understand what the implications were on a project by project basis of the decision between the two and how the funding is arrived at for capital projects as well, which would be the area we would need to try and increase expenditure in to defer the costs on ratepayers. We would also need to look at what other levers we have available to further explore the delineation between those two pots and how we fund them. That is something we can take away from the session and speak to you in further detail about.
Thank you, Charlie. All right, we might move on to Councillor McNally for an update.
Yeah, well, we could go on about this for a while, couldn't we? My report, all the transport operators, the stock trucks and others that traverse the length of the country, annoyed with the delays to the Brendurin and the Mangamokas. The impact on them is quite significant, and the impact on our farm gate returns is huge. It's affecting everyone. Some of the processors, so the stock that are carted down for killing in south of Auckland, some of those processors are actually paying they've increased the rate to this, so they have a fixed rate, these stock trucks, to deliver, and they have increased that. Some of them, others are having to increase the rate to the farmer on other jobs. So it impacts farm gate return. There's the Brendurin closure has recently been quoted at 12 to 14 million a day. I don't know if that's actually accurate or not, but there's a severe financial impact, and it's the closure of the Mangamokas and it's beginning to hit many industries very hard. And there's an email that all those councillors got relating to some stuff and talking to others, and I brought it up in the LTP deliberations the other day. You know, the economic impact across our region far north is huge. There's also some concerns still around road surface and traction. And the young woman that was lost her life on Bulls Gorge, that was apparently related to traction loss. There's also concerns around vegetation corridor for those B trains and bigger trucks, tree overhangs where they're having to cross some of our back roads. They're crossing right across the other side of the road so they don't wreck their gear, mirrors and radio aerials. And a truck mirror, you spend $500 or $600 every time you break one. In relation to the funding, yeah, I don't know if anyone, just the cost of these delays. One of the other ones, I saw a replay of the Hui where they talked about the Mangamoka closure. Chap in Mangamoka who goes to Kaitaia for dialysis 3 times a week. Used to take 35 minutes over the Mangamoka. Now via Bluewood, Hirakino, it's 55 minutes plus 3 times a week. It's 6 hours travelling versus 3. Teacher used to live in Hauriki, works at the Kura Kaitaia, used to be about 45 to 50 minutes over the Mangamoka. She was travelling around Highway 10, 2 hours each way. And she's now had to go and live in Kaitaia because it's just impossible, those hours to attend school and look after the kids and then get home back to Hauriki. So, you know, the impacts are massive of these closures. And that's why I think what I said earlier about this emergency work funding, I think this new policy is concerning, but we're focusing on the wrong part of the budget still. We've got to fix our roads, which means focusing on maintenance. And that's exactly what this paper's telling you to do. The Crown is going, spend your money in the right places, back to basics. It's really clear. I don't care if we have to increase that roading budget. As far as the pitch for the ministers, yeah, it's as simple as the funding buckets for what you give us by the NLTP doesn't fit what we need in the rural areas. The funding of the rural roads doesn't match, our requirement doesn't match the NLTF funding that comes down. And if you look in the SHIP thing, I'm really not that interested in the highway proposal. It's more about our local roads. Highways are looked after by someone else. But they talk about economic. It talks about economic growth and productivity. We've been hammered. Up here, we've lost millions and millions and millions as a region. They also talk about increased maintenance. We haven't got it in our budget yet. It's not also not on the LTF. They talk about safety, and they also say for Northlands, primary safety investment through maintenance. And then value for money. We have to look at the life cost of an asset. We've got to stop patching stuff up. And that's me, and I'm just bloody horrified, to be fair.
Thank you. I will move to reinstate standing orders, which I will also abide by. That was seconded by Deputy Minister Stratford. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, that is carried. Councillor Research, you were the original mover, so we'll go to you if you had any comment.
Yeah, just a question, for the one really. I agree with the McNally there with the maintenance, but look, if we look at our situation we're in, and we've been told that we can't necessarily rely on what Koukou funding us to the level that we need. So really we got to look to our own devices to try and do more police essentially. So tell me, would it be acceptable, for example, this is just an example, we've got a number of slips, 34, but in terms of the building of the resilience, as I said, if we said to Waka Kotahi, look, we want to do, spend X dollars and push it as far as we can on bringing our greater resilience into our roads, doing the various things because of the flood events and ensuring that we can meet the condition. You have to spell it all out project by project, or can it actually be bulk funded? That will then give us more flexibility how we can solve these issues and probably save a significant amount of money. So that's number one. And has Waka Kotahi considered, I know that's answer, I'm not asking Waka Kotahi here, considered actually removing the bar that limits other contractors working on the state highways instead of tier 1, dropping it down to a tier 2 or something, and maybe we can get some of this work done quicker. So 2 questions.
So I'll answer the second question first, through the chair. The second question is what Kotahi are currently looking at the entire maintenance contract structure and looking at an integrated delivery model framework, which is Northland one of the first cabs off the rank, as I understand it, in terms of moving it forward. And I think they're looking at progressing that in the next 12 to 18 months. So that is about how they take more control as an asset owner, but also have a better collaborative model with contracting pool, but that will go through a tender process. They already do have the ability for other tier 2s and rights to go in through their tender process, for how they do those sorts of things. With the first question, I didn't quite get what you're actually asking in terms of the flexibility of the funding pool. So it allows program, yeah. So because with respect to our repairs, renewals and maintenance, they are programs. They're not down to an individual. They are already at that program level and they're funded at that that flexibility.
Not necessarily with slip, but I'm just thinking that gives us the ability to without seeing it's based on immediate needs that we may need. So maybe his maintenance is a program. That's great. But slips, for example.
I think under the current,
we had to itemize every single slip under the last LTP program, but they are moving more towards a program of resilience going forward for the next LTP because they've realized themselves it's too hard to manage it individual project by project.
Thank you.
So there's hope.
Thank you.
Councillor McNally.
Just a technical question, given the tragedy on the Russell Okiako Road, can we implement, and it's unusual for me to ask for a speed reduction, can we implement section 157 of the Land Transport Act to reduce the speed over there temporarily but immediately. And that's 157D in particular that we apparently, as a road controlling authority, can set or provide a setting of speed limits, including maximum, minimum, variable and temporary for roads throughout New Zealand or in a particular locality, which speed limits may vary in vehicle classes, etc. And this relates particularly the increase in pedestrian traffic on that road due to the Te Araroa Trail.
So through the chair, we have organised for Elizabeth to be here at 12:30 for a specific discussion about the speed limits and Hawkes Road. So if we can defer that till that conversation, then she'll be here to provide feedback on it.
For the live stream, though, there are options available to this council.
There are some options available based on the short term and longer term. There are some implications of the short term, which council need to be aware of in terms of how you set temporary speeds and what the intent of future plans are and things like that. So
There's a couple of signs on Kirikiri Road that's still got temporary on them. They've been there for 2 years.
yes, so
I'll pull them down.
All right, councillor Vucic, would you like a right of reply?
No, fine, thanks.
Put that to the vote. All in favour, say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, that is carried. And that brings us to our
Aye.
ultimate item for today, item 6.1, which is on. Sorry, 7.6.1, which is on page 100. Which is board activity update. If I could get a move for this, please. You in a second. You don't accept it. It's unacceptable what's going on. Councillor Vucic, thank you. Was there anything particular you would like to highlight within this info report, Kelvin?
probably just a couple of chair. One of them is progress is still continuing at about a 17 to 20% rate above previous years in terms of delivery. We've had a really good summer, autumn construction season. And we're now actually starting to get the moisture to be able to get the unsealed roads ready for the winter period. Other thing to highlight is road safety week, National Road Safety Week this week. So there's a number of activities happening around the region. But the focus of this year is on recognition of road safety heroes and the right of every individual to play as a road safety hero. But also a key focus on restraints, being one of the key contributors to both, particularly in Northland. Probably the other, we are still progressing with those phase 3 slips. And we are getting the detailed assessments are starting to come through, which means we will get a better idea of what the final solution looks like, so we can get them out to tender over the winter period for next summer construction.
Thank you. Deputy English Stratford.
I don't know if I've missed it, but in the, you mentioned it as well, Calvin, in the report, in the executive summary and finding my. How will we, so 17% increase on works to me doesn't tell us that we're doing more, because everyone knows that there's been exorbitant, cost increases, to deliver work. How can you show us that there's actually, a quantity of works? Because I did a post on social media the other day and I'm not feeling the love. And I'm sure the contractors aren't seeing us do more work.
So just to quantify the escalation impact from last year, the 17% that I've quoted is escalation adjusted. So there was 5% escalation in this current year.
Okay.
That's obviously not seen in, that's based on the maintenance contract.
Yep.
So that's the first part of it. In terms of a quantum, we'd be able to do some work in terms of length of footpath, length of seal, but the reality is effectively we had, if you recall, year 1 was impacted by funding delays, year 2 was impacted by a 5-year construction season. We've effectively done 3 years of seal extensions not seal extensions, resealings, rehabs, those sorts of things. We can try and pull some quantities together, but there has been a significant volume of work. Footpaths, we've done most of the program of the 3 years of this period, so we'd need to actually pull some quantities out of some key activities, but we can look to do that for next month's report.
I remember the other thing that I was going to bring up. Yes. So I don't know if we've got anyone that can pass this on to comms, but for Tanya and Calvin, I think it would be really helpful to put a message out that when they see the grader past a particular road, and Michael was telling me about one out Timothy Way yesterday or Sunday, but you know, it's happening all over the show. There's programmed grader works and then there's reactive grader works, and people go, hey, you missed my road, and they get in contact with us or they hassle us when we go to Tangi. It would be really helpful if there is, you know, like, do make something interesting, so a story, so that the media will actually print it in the paper, because they're not printing us. But yeah, we need some proactive.
Coincidentally, yesterday, we have a monthly catch up with the comms managers from each of the 4 councils. Yesterday's focus was about proactive comms on key touch point activities, and moving away from print media to the likes of reels and things like that.
Yeah.
2 of the key areas we talked about were why we can and can't grade at certain times of the year, and what we do in preparation for that. So while we've just come out of that, we can't grade for summer, we're preparing for winter, because so you have the issues of too much.
Yeah.
So that's one of the key focus areas. One of the other focus areas is why we have to do temporary fixes on the sealed network during winter, so they then come back to it again in summer and those sorts of things. So we're working on 4 or 5 key focus areas. Far North has taken the lead in terms of doing the videography component of it.
We have a few examples out there.
Yep. So one of the things we talked about was how to do this. So there's a few options of that we're throwing around. One was from the eyes of a kid and going out there, why aren't they grading my road? Or I live on this road. The other option was from the eyes of an inquisitive resident, and those sorts of things, but just going out the site and engaging with a willing contractor, Jacko, or getting an explanation from the ground of why we can grade this now, why we can't, those sorts of things, but having it in those short snapshot things. So that's one of the things we're looking at. So yes, we can. Print media isn't really getting the message across, and it's too easy to be interpreted the wrong way.
The quality of what we're putting out there is good. It's just that the stories aren't being used by the media, and even the one sheet that's gone out in the Northern News, you know, people aren't engaging with that. Some are.
I think that's where real sharing on Facebook, those sorts
Positive propaganda doesn't get clicks.
So yeah, so that was actually the main focus of our discussion yesterday in the regional comms meeting.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to councillor Vusic, seconder.
Thank you. It's good to see the landing bridge being done. I've seen cars drive across that in the state of concern, but thanks to see that's being done. There's a question I've got is and also good to see that's right, good to see a road being done as well. The flood damage been sort of. When I looked at the page 145, I looked at these box culverts and it reminded me what in Wellington when I was down there and I spoke to Peter Hogan and looking at ways which we can actually do more for less, and said if we guaranteed amongst all our councils that we're going to buy 400 box culverts, can you please give us a good price? And actually he got rather excited about it all, even though we had nothing on the table for him, because he reckoned they could save a lot by doing that. And so that's forward planning to a fair degree, but it means that the construction of these prices, you know, whoever's doing it, and certainly say, oh, good, I'll go with that and I'll get it to you. This is a deal. Why can't we do some of those things, given we can't catch up with all our bridges, and most of them are basically box culverts, 2 box culverts together? And secondly, You can also comment on what comment I'm going to make now, which is probably controversial, but I remember the day when we could grade roads during summer, and we did that no Kinga because we got wet winters, and we did it with water carts and rollers, and it worked really well.
So again, I'll answer your second one first. Water carts and rollers are still an option. There are two constraints to it. One is cost. So grading under the current contract is a lump sum activity, but water carts and rollers is an additional ordered works activity. So that is a budget constrained activity. The second part of that is over the years when we have dry summers which restrict grading, we also have water restrictions. And it is, even if we are able to take water, it is not a good look for council, and we've been hammered in the past of pouring water on the road when there's water restrictions on communities. So yes, it is an option, but yeah, it's one that does cost and comes with
I know
implications.
there, but you could take in all what's it?
Through the chair, if I could just add to that too, we also have to declare all our water takes now. So through the regional council, and that is notifying in advance of any water takes, volumes taken. So we also have to be working within their rules and restrictions, which often tighten up sooner than we start to look at more restrictions ourselves.
Easy to solve, extended. But anyway, my first question.
So your first question on box culverts, the reality is even across the three Northland councils, we don't have the volume that would justify that even in our future plans. What we do, we have on occasion where we have the same materials across councils, even we have done forward planning on behalf of council and forward purchasing to make those savings. But yeah, the reality is we don't at this stage have that volume. Where we do have it, and potentially, and one of the things that the idea of moving to the 3-year bridge programs and the likes is to look at those efficiencies moving forward of how we can actually do it. Part of that is about early contractor engagement as well. If we're awarding the same type of works to one contractor, we can then look at how we can get material savings. So it's something that's being explored, but at the moment, part of the risk is our assets across the network are not consistent. So you don't have the same things, but it is one. We also do look at other efficiency savings. There was a bridge replacement recently, a couple of years ago in the far north, where WDC had a old bridge in a storage yard. For the cost of refurbishment and transport of about $40,000, we were able to bring that up here and save significant volumes for far north by putting in a bridge that was actually appropriate and reusing a second-hand one. So
we just start craning out their bridges now. We just start craning the bridges out and bringing them back.
I mean,
They've got more money.
Yeah, but I mean, WDC have done the same thing on the Carmo Shared Path, the Carmo Shared Path walkway bridge, the railway, the one that looks like a railway bridge, again, is a reconditioned second-hand railway bridge. So where those options do exist, we definitely look for them.
Koukou Bridge from Moeroa to Whangarei.
Yes.
So that's reciprocated as well.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Foy and then myself after her.
Thanks, Calvin. I just had a couple of questions. The first one was about the vegetation spraying or vegetation clearance and having some transparency to our ratepayers about what's in the lump sum contract or what is ordered works and what should be the level of expectation around that. Because a lot of people are commenting about how their roadside is a jungle and, you know, what do I get for my rates, etc., because all they see is their road. So it'll be great to have some explanation around that, and also for us as our council to understand the budget restraints or opportunities if we were to give more funding to that. And the second question I have is around expectations for level of service of metal roads, and a lot of the time it's detailed from the NTA that you're not there to rebuild, the roads with the maintenance contract. It's there purely just for maintenance. But what our ratepayers don't understand is what's actually, and probably myself as an elected member, what is the clear delineation about what is expected in the contract, the lump sum contract, or ordered works, for that maintenance requirement for a metal road. And if we were to do X, Y, Z more, you know, for our roads, what budget that will be in and what's, you know, what as a council we should be allocating in our budgets to do that proper fix. And how long for our network that would take to get around our network, because Moko's talked about, you know, 160 years, et cetera. So those are my two questions.
So with respect to what budget is required, that budget was identified in the AMP that we've just put forward. And that has been the basis of both the recommendation for your LTP and the submission to the NLTF. So the budget in the AMP is based on the condition assessment, renewals requirements, rehabilitation requirements, and ongoing maintenance. I'll get Ben, we can provide some information about maintenance grading and the difference between maintenance. I'm not sure if you can cover that now or if it's something that we need to send through.
Probably sent something through, yeah. It's fine.
Yep, but in terms of vegetation?
Yep, so through the chair, even vegetation maintenance is probably worthwhile the pulling together some detail around that and sending it out, because it is fairly complex how we treat some of these activities within the contracts. Vegetation maintenance is an example. We have both ordered work and lump sum activities captured within the environmental space. So when we look at our roadside spraying, that is an ordered work activity. Depending on the budget we have sitting within the environmental maintenance bucket, we determine whether we're able to undertake multiple rounds in a year or part rounds to target specific areas of high growth. And we play around with that a little bit based on the holistic need on the network. Depending on the environmental factors in any one year too, often dictates whether we need to undertake a second or third round, for example, or whether we can let things sit. Vegetation maintenance, we're also talking about an envelope there. So we do have a vegetation envelope for both our roads and footpaths within the contract that defines the height and width out from a road edge in which we clear vegetation. Again, that is in part covered within contract lump sums where we've already paid the contractor to bring a road into specification, envelope specification. The expectation thereafter is it's covered under lump sums. Contractors continue to maintain. We equally applied that at the start of the contract 6 years ago, where we recognised where for parts of the network our roads were already in spec, and that immediately triggered the routine expectations for our contractors, and then went through a prioritisation process of identifying needs outside of that, which are undertaken under day works. We are not on top of our vegetation needs on the network. That is the reality. 6 years we have been making, but there's still a lot out there. From my travels just over the last couple of weeks around the north, it is really evident up here at the moment that we have a deficit between able to achieve with our available budget, particularly around the roadside spraying side of things. Ideally, we want to get our spraying undertaken prior to recommencing our grading, as an example, and we are purely due to restricted budgets. I believe we've put quite a bit more emphasis in the environmental maintenance space within the AMP. So touch wood, we get recognition of that and going forward.
Through the chair, just building a little bit for some context on what Bernard has said. Some councillors may recall previous papers about the impacts of cost escalation on the maintenance contract and how supported works available component has shrunk as a result of the escalation because the budgets remain the same. One of the key areas that has been negatively impacted by that is the cyclic spraying and those sorts of areas, because we no longer have that same level of funding available. So those are the areas that we've gone. Not only do we need to have a catch up on escalation in the next round of the end and NLTP, but we also need to recognise that there is a catch up on historic work. So there's a two-pronged approach in those things.
Yeah. Thank you. Couple things from me. One, great to have you in the room and great to get this oversight over these things that we're raising, that we're hearing from our community and stuff like that. What I am for you as our new hot seat holder there, Tanya, for this committee, is what I'm seeing or what I'm feeling is I'm hearing from staff that there are determinations that are made operationally, and rightly so, because that's your job to do that sort of thing. But that information is missing the link back up here so that we can get a better understanding around those budgetary constraints or the decisions that have to be made at an operational level. We heard a few around, like spraying or the rehab or the grading and that sort of stuff. So what is the connect so that those operational decisions that are made within the funding budgets that we set up for you to go away with, what's the connect so that we can be kept informed and it's not reactionary information sharing, but proactive information sharing so that we can get a better understanding of it. So I don't know the answer to that, but I'm just.
I think in reality, what we need to probably look at how we incorporate is how to tell that story more than once. So this story was told as an impact of the escalation impacts, and then from a staffing perspective, we moved on and implemented what we told you, but we haven't had a mechanism to continue to double back and go, actually, these are that. Link it back to this is what we told you, these are why we're making these decisions and these are the impacts. So it's about how we can continue to tell the story rather than just telling you once. Probably one of the biggest.
And telling it in a language that I understand and the community will understand as well. Because this is your bread and butter, you comprehend and understand it a lot better than myself.
And it's one of the reasons we're looking at these videos as well about some of these hot topic areas.
The other thing I wanted to raise was a couple of things. So a couple of weeks ago, we headed out for a community meeting in reaction to a deputation we had from North Hokianga. It was a great community meeting. We're looking to set up a working group to have elected members and community members on side for better purview, is that the word I'm looking for the slip sites, for the what will be carry forwards for the unsealed road extension, ceilings extension, all this great stuff. When I went out there last time, it was a weekday, and the state of the roads was really terrible. Gone back again, and the state of the roads is still the same. I've heard that there was a grade out along one of the side streets called Pitikaru Road, locally known as K Road in Pangaru. Now on K Road, they've had a grader go through. The grader has not done the best job according to the aunties at the local pub. So I got a bit of an ear bashing when we went there. And when Deputy Minister was talking around that information sharing, that got me thinking around the something that we kind of requested 4 years ago, I think it was, and that was to have scheduled grading available on our website so that someone could look up their street and see when it's programmed to come in. We've got this great new resource with these maps for the slip sites where we can see that and there's data being fed in there. We've got a brand new website that's got better connectivity or something like that. So how do we inform the info? What info is required to go onto some kind of thing on the website so that Auntie Philla, who lives on Cape Road, wants her road graded or it's extra bad, and the roads are pretty bad. Yeah, I wouldn't say so otherwise, but it's probably one of the worst states I've seen our West Coast. Let's even looking. That she could go on our website, look up Cape Road and see that it's actually scheduled for grading next week. Now she's not gonna attack me or put a request in, which will get clogged in the system or manage staff time. And then if it doesn't turn up next week, then she can reach out and we can say it didn't turn up because of this reason. Or it's gonna come next month, sorry, or we update the information anyway. Or if the graded driver does come and doesn't do a job to her expectations, then she can let us know. So how do we inform, proactively share information with our communities like we've done around the slips? And guess what? I don't know about you guys, but my own inbox, just by putting that information on our website as a place to fund people too, it's actually taken the heat off me and my, and a lot of it, it's comms that were coming through to me from people around, what about this, what about that? It's all stopped because how do we get that for the grading itself?
So we have been working with IT on a trial in terms of how we can display some of that type of information. So one of the things we've been working on is how we can pull RAM data to show when the next inspection is due and when the last inspection was completed, because and then associated with that, putting information on what that inspection drives. So if it identifies a need for grading, if the inspection was done last week, you should expect the grader to come through.
So is our grading done just reactionary from inspections, or is it scheduled to happen?
So not reaction, it's done as an as needs basis from inspection. So inspections are done on a cyclic basis, whether it's monthly or 2 monthly.
Is this the contractor led inspections or our own staff?
So that's contractor led inspections, which are audited by our own staff.
10% or?
At least 10%, I think is the requirement. The second part of it is we're trialing we are doing in Whanau the blanket grade post winter. So one of the options might be looking at how we can get a schedule out of where that blanket grade, and that's across the entire network, trying to get things ready for winter. But the general level of service is set by the inspect. If it requires grading, then we go in and grade it. One of the reasons for that is there's a lot of feedback harking back to the old days of why don't we go back to the days when you used to grade my road, whether it needed it or not. There's an issue with that. One, it's not efficient, but also when you grade it, it degrades it and actually causes further deterioration. So part of the reason we go through these roads and go past them is that grading is not actually deemed to be the appropriate intervention at that time. But part of that's about those videos as well.
How often are the, say, West Coast Road, which is not just a little side road, how often would that get inspected by our contractor? It's monthly.
Yeah, through the chair, yes, so West Coast Road and the vast majority of the roads in that catchment are monthly. Generally.
And then if they pick up that it does need to be graded, at what point from when that gets sent through to head office would we expect that the grader would go out to?
There's a 10-day response time following the inspection for the contractor to get the resource out there and take the physical graph.
So we're sitting at 2.5 weeks since I last did my own mural inspection of West Coast Road, which was terrible. And then followed that up 2.5 weeks later with another one. At what point should we expect that should be sent to?
So I think for that one specifically, we need to look at when the last inspection was and give you the dates of when it's going to be due. But the reality is if, for example, they had done their inspection the day before your first mural inspection, it should be done by now. If they had done the inspection 2 weeks earlier and found it to be in an okay condition, then we're talking that inspection probably only just due now. And then, so it does depend on the cycle and weather impacts.
How does that RFS influence that cycle as well?
So an RFS does prompt an investigation. They have 2 days to acknowledge the RFS and 10 days to go out and inspect, and that then starts the clock. The other thing that as council begins to invest in further rehabilitation of the road, part of the benefits of that is grading is actually needed less. So grading, and this is going to be one of those education things that we're going to work through with the community, that we actually want to get to a point where we don't have to grade your road so often on an unsealed network. And we've seen that in along the Kaipara ones, where we've done the rehabilitation treatment, where they've gone 18 months to 2 years without a grade. And that's the position you actually want to be in as a council, because that reduces your maintenance expenditure on grading, which means you can invest it in things like drainage.
18 months to 2 years. Do they not have trucks on them?
Yep. Across two roads.
Yeah, through the chair, some of our trial sites have aggregate quarries based on them. They've lasted a good 18 months before requiring attention. I just want to also just highlight we have just come out of our dry summer period. Our roads have deteriorated through the summer months. As part of that, we have had most of our grading activities during that period on hold. We are recommencing grading at the moment, making most of the weather start to see, and the blanket grading approach we're taking up in the final network this season has already commenced. So we should start to see the network be brought back into level service fairly quickly.
Can I just say, just on that was my final note here, was looking forward to better comms with our communities and an education piece around this, but we just need to, I don't know what the word is, have an Auntie Karen lens on the comms as they go out. Our ones around grading for summer and the fact that, you know, we can't because of water restrictions, but then the next day our own council comms go out to say Kaitai and Kaiho don't have water restrictions and Kaitai is one of our bulk supply. Like that's not helpful to when you're trying to tell a community one thing and then we have, and that's probably more for comms, Ruben, rather than the staff themselves. But we have to be very consistent and clear with our communities when we're going out to tell them something and then we're going out to tell them something else. Like we can't be hypocritical in the way that we public of what's happening and all that sort of stuff. Because they see right through it. We'll go to Councillor Mick now.
Just a question on the numbers. This report, I take it as the end of March. And you talk about transport works up 70%. And then, but I wanted to ask about the capital works, page 141, you've got a little table there. 71% of the budget will be fully delivered this year. 3 months to run as I think it's risk report. We're going to make it or not. Then the other two columns there, there's risk of partial delivery and risk of non-delivery. And I note the non-delivery looks to relate predominantly to safety and seal extensions. If you look at the tables over 142 to 144 million, which that's a government initiative. I want to know what carry forwards are likely and what's the impact of that on next year's capital work program.
Through the chair, I'm currently working through the carry forwards for next year due to Tanya. So then we can actually end finance.
Should be zero. Yeah, 3 months since this report.
Through the chair, for a start, 4 million risk of non-delivery is projects that will not be delivered.
Can we use that money somewhere?
These are generally named projects with named subsidies.
See, that's the other one. However, yeah, Moko, you need to go to our ministers. Do not lock them into a particular. If we've got that formula, flexibility. Yeah,
a number of those. I think the other thing to point out that is in any program, in any business, if you set a target of 100%, you will never achieve it. The only way to achieve 100% is to.
Why don't you give yourself half of what it was to you?
No, the way to achieve it is to overschedule. So to achieve 100%, you really need to be targeting 115 or 120. So one of the reasons we are looking to move to these 3-year programs for approaching everything else is to give that flexibility across years. If a project from year 1 falls over, to be able to pull a project from year 2 in, because you can't necessarily predict that the resource consent you were expecting to get is going to come through. whether it's from a contracting utilisation perspective or a council delivery project perspective, only targeting 100% is not an achievable outcome. So there will all, unless, and the other thing is, in most cases, for contractor continuity, you should always have carry forwards. You should not have an arbitrary line in the sand at the end of June where all that work finishes and new work starts on the 1st of
The
July.
problem with the carry forward is it really impacts the balance of our budget. So we need to be operating at 100%. I hear what you say, but it's agreed.
Yeah, on a 3-yearly basis, that is the time.
We'll go to councillor Rakina, councillor Court.
I was just pointing out that.
Oh, thank you, councillor Rakina. I have a feeling I know what you're going to bring up.
Kia ora. I just want to come back to the previous conversation that was brought up by Koukou. I've heard the kōrero around the roading inspectors when it comes to inspecting our unsealed roads, and I'm talking about Ko Whitikiro Road, which the Mayor has mentioned, Runaruna Road, Whangape Road, Pawarenga, Te Karaka, Te Rangi, and West Coast Road. I see who the road inspectors are, the true road inspectors. It's the locals. It's the locals who stood up to speak at the North Hokianga Roading Committee hui that was held more than 2 weeks ago now. Dawn was there. We heard all the stories from them. We've also heard feedback from Calvin to say that it's not necessary or it's not recommended to grade while there's not enough moisture in the road, to which I get. Now that there's enough, well, I would assume now that after yesterday's and today's rain, that there would be enough moisture in our roads to be able to be graded. If we're talking about the communication times to give feedback within 10 days, I sent an email prior to our North Hokianga hui, the week of and the week following. I myself, as an elected member, as a councillor, have not received a response. So if I can't get a response from staff, I would expect that our communities can't even get a response. Everyone's seen my email trail. Everyone received the document that was sent through by the kahika to provide information that was supposed to be delivered at that meeting. The information that was delivered partly by Dawn was not presented to the elected members before we went to that hui, thus sparking my email to ask where the information was, because to my ears, it didn't seem like any staff had communicated clearly with those communities to say or to deliver what the plan would look like for the reconstruction at Motuti. I acknowledge that I might have heard wrong, but it sounded like there would be a reroute at the Motuti slip. Therefore, the community members living around the Motuti area would then have to drive right around Kohu, back through Broadwood, back through Runaruna, just to get to Te Kura Taimata or Pangaru twice a day. I'm not too sure if staff made that clear or had communicated with the communities that they would have to do that for up to 6 months, because I tell you what, that was news to my ears in that meeting, and it really, really upset me, and it really, really upset other community members. Following on from that meeting, Fleur was the only one that responded to my email to say that she was collecting the minutes from that meeting. Minna has asked for an update. No one has responded. So I go back to my kōrero earlier on. If the elected members, i.e. myself, cannot get a response from staff, from senior staff at that, then what is the expectation that our community members can receive a response from an RFS? The roads aren't getting graded. put your hand up, NTA staff. When was the last time that you actually went out to Runaruna Road, Pawaringa Road, West Coast Road, Kowhitikiro Road, Te Karaka, Motuti, and West Coast Road? If you cannot put your hand up and say that you went there, then it's no use talking about it. Words, photos are far removed from the reality that these poor communities have to live with day in and day out. I won't accept any of the answers that have been delivered to the kahika previously, because I know within myself that it hasn't been done and that it probably won't be done, because the evidence is in my email trail. So as I sit here listening to this, I really cringe, because I just think, geez, what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen next week? Probably nothing, because nothing is what I've received lately. And that's just being honest. I'm not hammering a blank nail. The nail's there. Kia ora mai tātou.
Well spoken, Tamati. You're dead right.
Tēnā koe Koukou ni hera rā, kēnā i nā kōrero, me te tautoko Koukou ni hera rā. What I might ask is,
Just
something else. Thank you, Councillor Radish, come to you after this. The follow-up from that meeting, and then now it's been 2 committee cycles since. I am way too busy as the Mayor of the Far North to be worrying about having to worry directly so for 2,000 Far Northerners in North Hokianga, and better processes than that. And it was lauded at our deputation from North Hokianga communities that it would be great for us to get that community connected, and we'll set up a working group. We've had that follow-up meeting. I haven't had an update, and this is where I don't want to have to, I'm always having to chase up, I don't have time, or councillors are having to chase up themselves, or communities have to chase up our organisation where there are gaps. So at what point can I expect, so that actually I don't have to worry about it, it's getting sorted. Councillor Rakina can sit on this working group itself, and so he can be the chair. Got a lot of passion there. Councillor Radish can sit on it too. Waimana can sit on it themselves and have access directly to staff to get better understanding and oversight about what's going on. Where is that sitting in terms of reference to set it up, or in expressions of interest, just like our waste minimisation strategy steering groups can happen? Where is that paper at, or do I need to write it myself and put the executive assistant to the office of the mayor's name to it, so a staff member has written it, give it to someone else to approve, so that it will finally come through and we can actually action it? Or where is that sitting? Who's got ownership of that? And this is a follow-on from our last council meeting, where we've got things that don't get ownership to them, and so it just sort of nothing happens of it. So while Tanya is now in the hot seat for this, Tanya, I'm telling you that you are now the owner of this sort of stuff, and whatever stuff you need whip or buy a coffee for, or whether it's a carrot or it's a stick, that I will be looking to through our CE, our general managers, for you all to actually have to take ownership of anything and everything that needs to be done by this table or our committees until it's actually done. Because we've got a job as governors, and we can't do our job effectively or represent our communities effectively if we don't have appropriate follow-up from the organisation. So Councillor Larkin has raised a number of points there. Can someone please make sure they find his email and respond to it? Can someone please follow up on our North Hokianga working group terms of reference and make sure that's on the next committee meeting so that we can establish that group? We had Uncle Graham Morrell, who threatened to just get his own truck and blow out the bank to that Motuti slip if we weren't going to be giving them the information, or giving him or Te Ponatopu or Hokianga trusts hundreds of logging trucks that go through there, knowing that they can do it. He's just going to do it himself and then send me a bill. and then probably go to jail. I don't know. So if we don't follow up, there's going to be consequences, and we're all hearing that. You heard that from Councillor Radic, you heard that from Councillor Akin, and you're hearing it from me now. You need to make sure that someone watch this back later and sort of, we'll go to Councillor Radic and then Chair Akin.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Look, I support what he just spoke. I don't know how many times I've said it, you know, and on many occasions I've asked who is inspecting our roads? Who does the inspecting? And you don't get an answer. You know, there's a road up in the far north called Burnett Road. And NTA has this thing in their mind from December to April, you don't grade the roads because there's not enough moisture, which is rubbish. I mean, so when you're in that period of time, you get corrugation. What sorts out corrugation? Grader. It's simple, grader. And that was our biggest problems on the Hokianga and in the far north on our middle roads was corrugation. So they sent a grader up the Burnett Road, they graded it. You know what? No more problems. No more corrugation. You know, simple. I've always said, you know, and I'm not picking on you, NTA, but in the last 5 years, you people have been a disaster. Well, you just look at the professors.
Sorry, Councillor Radic.
No, I just ask, just look at the RFSs that come through council for roading. That explains it all. Thank you.
To the chair, can I just point out that that was a direct attack on staff?
Yes.
The NTA, council staff.
Councillor Radic, I will ask you to apologise and withdraw your last statement.
What do you want me to apologise for?
You can't give a direct verbal attack at staff like that, Councillor Radic.
Well, how can I modify it? Okay, I'm not going to apologise. You people want to take a code of conduct against me, you do that. And this whole community up here will fight.
Remove Councillor Radic from the team's meeting. I apologise. We'll go to Chair Akin.
Okay, I'm not sure who I'm directing my questions to, but one of the.
Direct them to Tanya, who is.
Okay, Tanya. So RFSs, I'm just wondering about the number of RFSs that are made for specific roads. Is there, if I know that one RFS has been made for a particular road, do I leave it at that? Or do I follow up as a elected member?
Through the mayor, I would leave it. There is a process so it will go through the process. If when it comes back to the person who has requested the RFS, if they're not happy, ultimately there is an ability to escalate that. But every RFS in general should go through the process first, please.
Thank you. Secondly, I just want to tautoko what Tamati talked about with the North Hokianga Working Group, but also just to highlight that there are other places in our ward, and I think of a little place called Ottawa, who don't have the ability perhaps or the personnel or the resource out there to create a working group. So I just want to put a plug in for the little rural areas that we have in our ward, like Ottawa, that's one that springs to mind, that have these little tari roads, and I've just recently RFS'd that road. I travelled on it last year with a group of children. I was horrified at the state of the road and also the little bridge that they have to cross over just back from Renwick Road. So that's an RFS that I've just put in recently again, because I happened to be out there again recently for a tangi. I was in my car, I should have felt safer, but honestly going over that bridge and going up to that bridge is horrific and an accident waiting to happen. So just two things there, the state of that road and also the inability perhaps for that community to have a working group. It's great that our whānau out in North Hokianga have the resource and the people and the pull perhaps, But I also just want us to be mindful about the other little places that don't have that pull. Block drains, is that this? So again, I've RFS'd last December along Tahiki Road, the big trees, I don't know what they are, outside number 2A Tahiki Road. There's a stormwater channel along there. It was blocked. I made the RFS in December. Appeared to me to be no action. Again, about a month ago, I check it daily to see if there's been any clearance. Today I go past and I just flipped through a couple of photos to Melissa, because that's the person that I go through. And again, that drain is just chocker with water and rubbish and debris. So two things, the trees that are planted, the leaves all fall, just like down on Mangakahia Road here. And I just wonder about, so that's that problem. But then I'm also, as you're talking about inspections, what 10% of the work gets inspected? Is it just a random, I drove by and popped out and had a look inspection, or is it an actual, I've inspected, so I'm going to get back to that person that made the RFS to say, I've inspected that whatever issue that you raised, and I believe that it's completed satisfactorily, because not just the drainage and the roading RFSs that I've made, I go and check myself if they're in the Kaipuhi area or if I'm driving past, and not one RFS that I've made has been completed satisfactorily in my opinion. So I'm just wondering about if 10% of our RFSs are inspected, then what, where, who does it, and how does that, if you made an RFS and that work was inspected, how is it, is there an expectation that the person that made the RFS is told that the work's been completed to a satisfactory standard?
Thank you, Chair. I'll get, and thank you, Cameron. I'll get Tanya to cover off a few of those things, and then she might direct the number of the responses over to our NTA staff to respond to.
Just in response to a few of those things, so RFSs, when they're logged, they will default to, they'll go through a process. Actually, if we could just jump back a little bit to the RFS, sending them to myself and Kelvin's inbox is probably the least effective way, because while I look across the room to Yako, contract manager for our southern contract, if it's coming to myself and Kelvin, it's actually not going to Yako and his team who will get onto that. I appreciate and have seen over the years, particularly the stormwater culverts west of Kaipuhi at Tahiki Road here. My first question to myself, and I can work with Kelvin and his team around this, is what's in the contract? And Councillor Court and I think Councillor Foy have mentioned before, it's worth us doing some work to understand what the KPIs are in the contract. Off the top of my head, we might know that's a problem, and it might be in there to clean it once a year from our contractors. I suspect that it needs, like, we all think that it should be cleaned prior to now, as those in autumn. But if it's not in the contractor's not going to do it. We sit here getting frustrated. Then there's no money for any additional orders. So if I could have some time to work through and understand exactly what the KPIs are, what we do and don't have in that contract, to then understand where to from here, and then come back to the committee. We've also, when it was, so effective the 1st of July, we have appointed an engineer to contract for separable portion 3 of our north and south contracts. We do have an engineer to contract currently, that will be changing to Rob Gilmore as of the 1st of July. So our engineer to contract, as well as our own, our staff within the NTA checking those RFSs, that engineer to contract will have oversight on all of those parts as well. Heat map, one more thing, and I will, Kelvin and I can talk about this and adding to the comms. One thing that I can't see appreciate this as a roading agenda item, but same thing within our Three Waters space. I can't see whether one person has phoned about a particular RFS, that bridge and located to there, or 25 people have phoned. So what I would like to investigate with our IT team and Charlie's team is whether we can maybe heat map some of those things so that draws our attention to how many people are ringing about a particular issue. That bridge off the top of my head has long been like that actually. And it's not to my memory, somebody has passed away there a number of years ago now, but so I'm sure that we can have a look at that and see what's that and when and how that renewal might need to be.
Roads are flood before, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to Tanya's point, I think one of the, as part of the workshops that are intended to be planned with the members for the next iteration of maintenance contracts, one of the key things of that is understanding things like drainage intervention and that to identify what the elected members' desires are moving forward. Is the contract appropriate at the moment, or is there a change in level of service required? Some of these are a result of going back to the clearance of the drain is not necessarily part of a lump sum. It's ordered works. Ordered works is under pressure in terms of budgets. How we communicate that needs to be improved. I think the other thing, just to clarify, the 10% of auditing I referred to is not about RFSs. That is about the routine inspections that are done. So an RFS every RFS should be acknowledged within 2 days and should be responded to within 10. Given the volumes over the last 12 months, those timeframes have definitely slipped. But it is an area where we've, as of yesterday, got an additional temp resource across the region that we've engaged to help clear the remainder of the backlogs of those RFSs. I think one of the other things though, that often we get feedback that my RFS hasn't been resolved. Sometimes no is an appropriate answer. And we often get it hasn't been resolved when the answer is no, at the moment we can't resolve. So there is that part of it as well. But yeah, definitely do some work with Tanya, but there is an opportunity coming up in terms of council need to determine what their way forward is in terms of the future maintenance contracts, and that's a real opportunity to understand where the deficits are at the moment.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Stratford for right of reply.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to that we've got a representative from one of the contractors in the room, and I just wanted to acknowledge them for coming along, and hopefully we can see others. But over the years, roading contractors have been quite vocal about deficits in our contract and our budgets. And we're not seeing that in these reports, which might be helpful for us as we go through the process of developing a new contract. And I just wanted to touch on some of those answers that are no. Can we get away from the template responses? It pisses people off. You know, there's the vegetation one, there's the dust seal one. If you're going to use the template response, please put something personable in there as well. And I just wanted to highlight that we had a hui as part of our Taumata River Liaison Committee in Ōpahi, and that was around flood mitigation, but it was just roads. So just total for what Councillor Rakina said, but also Waichiki on, you know, our rural communities are feeling very overlooked, and they will continue to do so unless we really get that money from the government that we've asked for. And I just wanted to say, although I couldn't attend the North Hokianga hui, I got to listen to it on Radio Tautoko, so well done all of you. It was a very interesting, passionate hui that I don't know where you can find it to listen back, but the final thing, oh no, there's two last things. As well as, you know, the deficits. We want to hear that from the contractors. From NTA, we want to know about the vegetation, because that's been the most common thing that I've been getting, above potholes, above grading, the vegetation and the health and safety risk of not being able to see going around corners, that's not being done fast enough. Tell us the information we need to put enough money in the budget. And finally, Road Safety Week being this week, I just want to acknowledge, because the theme is local heroes. It hasn't gone live yet, but Chair of Taumatama Koukou Committee, Roddy Hapati Pihima, who's also a community board member for Koukou Moeroa, him and his community lobbied and successfully got that speed reduction between Moeroa and Kawakawa, and then they also got the speed camera. And I just want to acknowledge the work that he went through, years of it, meeting with Waka Kotahi, even some of NTA have been to his house with me there in Ahui. And, you know, if you're lucky enough to have somebody like that in your community, you can make change eventually. And I just want to acknowledge acknowledge Roddy as one of our local road safety heroes. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. To receive our monthly report for March rating, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed or abstentions, and that is carried. That brings us to the end of our Te Koukou Transport and Infrastructure Committee meeting for this month. We'll close this with karakia. Ko te tapu o ngā kōrero ka irihia ki ngā pātu o tō tātou whare. Ngā haungi e, hui e. Thank you. We've got a break for lunch, and then at 12:30, we're going to have a discussion around the regional land.
Just speed management.